Well, welcome to another episode of Prophetic Perspective. I'm here with Bill Koenig, and Bill, you have had an incredible perspective on some of the events happening in our country and around the world that have prophetic significance. Tell us a little bit about your ministry and how you have been really watching for all that's happening prophetically for many years.
Well, for about 25 years, keeping almost a daily eye on the biblical things that are happening, the prophetic things.
Yes.
We're blessed to be living in the most important time in Bible prophecy history. I started in Dallas 25 years ago, and then after George W. Bush was elected, moved to D.C. area for 20 years. So I had being a great supporter of the state of Israel, the Lord put me at the White House for the Bush, Obama, Trump terms, and the United States has always had a significant role when it comes to Bible prophecy. A lot of people don't realize our presidents keep moving the ball down the road, or moving things further and further and closer to completion of his plan. So yes. It's been a privilege to see that, and there's so much going on, Tim, right now that's just hard to stay up with everything.
Well, obviously, the United States was the first nation that recognized Israel in 1948, and I think that is to our great credit. As a matter of fact,
absolutely.
God poured out blessing. You can almost see the blessings that multiplied in the next several years as the United States had been the first to support the modern state of Israel. But then we began to wonder, and time again, our presidents in particular have been faithless with Israel and have tried to divide the land that God promised to the Jewish people. And you have documented how that has repercussions, even here and now.
Absolutely. The presidents that blessed Israel were blessed significantly. God's favor was on them. And our presidents have been well-meaning. They want to see Israel live in peace and security. But the plan, the global plan, the U.S. plan, is to create a Palestinian state. In other words, an Arab state in Judea and Samaria. And every time our American presidents, well-meaning, attempt to divide the land, put pressure on Israel, major catastrophic events happen in America. The Trump term was incredible because we've had no president do more for Israel combined than Trump. The embassy, standing up against Iran, standing up against the International Criminal Court, isolation of Israel, shutting down the Palestinian office in Washington, D.C., cutting back funds, everything. And the favor was on Trump dramatically. But that favor changed January 28 last year when the Trump-Kushner plan, Kushner's the one that put the effort into the plan.
Right. When
that plan was given last year, the favor came off. And I document life in America before January 28 last year when the Trump Peace to Prosperity plan was given, and life after January 28th. It's dramatically different. And unfortunately, the two guys that were the big part of the plan, Trump and Netanyahu, are no longer in office, and they may never get back to office.
No. People talk about this two-state solution even, and I want to just scream because there are two states in the land that the Lord provided for Israel. There's the state of Jordan,
Absolutely.
which was designed to be an Arab state, and then the state of Israel. And so Jordan has more Palestinians than even live in the confines of Israel, and yet Jordan doesn't want the Palestinians in Israel to immigrate. So all the nations in that part of the world kicked out most of their Jews. I mean, they just eradicated the Jewish population in their own nations, but they really didn't want the Palestinians to come in because they wanted them to be a continual thorn in the side of Israel. You can think almost back to the judges having the thorns that were left there in the land of Canaan, and yet even Christians sometimes are deceived to the reality. They buy into the lies of the BDS movement, etc., and you obviously tell the truth about what's happening in the land.
Absolutely. May 14, 1948, as you mentioned, Tim, the day after Israel became a state, they were attacked by 5 Arab countries. I mean, this was a UN resolution that led to Israel becoming a state, and that wasn't satisfactory.
No.
And it's been one war after another war, and Israel just wants to be left to be a productive country, an amazing country, and the Arabs that have surrounded them have wanted to have all the land. And this will lead to the final day completions in the wars in Ezekiel 38 and 39, the Gog and Magog war, and the final So we understand that, but anytime that land that God gave to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their descendants, things happen, and they're catastrophic and they're very costly, politically and otherwise.
Well, I appreciate what you said about even the Abraham Accords, which demonstrates that there are Arab nations that want to be in relationship with Israel, but you pointed out that it was the son of blessing, Isaac, who was the propagator of the blessing given to Abram for the land. Isaac, and then his son Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, and not Abraham's other sons. They got blessing in and of themselves, but not the promised land. And so today, again, many people don't understand the dynamic of what's happening. And I even point back during the Clinton administration, he held a conference where they had the Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, and they had the head of the Palestinian organization, Yasser Arafat, and gave them or offered them everything he claimed to want, land and peace and everything else, and Arafat rejected it because he really didn't want those things. He wanted to be at war with Israel.
As well as sovereignty over the holy sites.
Yes.
In an interview he had with Christiane Amanpour with CNN, she goes, "How could you not take this deal? It was so generous that Barak offered you. How could you not?" And he said, "It had to do with the holy sites." And, and she went back after that. He took the microphone off and walked off the stage. He had virtually everything he wanted but that, which would never happen.
And he went back and sparked one of the intifadas,
That's
the
exactly
uprising
right.
against Israel. So
That's right.
we see through the deception, the lies, and to this day, the Palestinian leadership foments hatred against Israel, and their lies are so outlandish. But really, Satan being the father of lies, whether it's propaganda in the Palestinian educational system, whether it's propaganda in our own nation, Satan is perpetrating lies to try to deceive, if he can, even those who put their faith in Christ.
That's right. That's right. And as W.A. Criswell used to always say in Dallas, if you want to know where things stand, watch what they're doing with the city of Jerusalem, God's time clock. So right now, the entire world wants to divide that city. And the battles are coming, Tim. You know that.
Yes.
We know that. And we're just blessed to be living at that time.
We certainly
to watch
are.
this.